Chapter 8. Alice was studying the small black stellarite pebble once again, when Will's arrow had soared through her window the night before to clatter against the far wall. She had been surprised to find it contained a pebble. Then she read Malcolm's brief explanation of its purpose, and she felt a surge of hope. She was more ready to believe that the stone could help her refocus her mind than Will had been. After all, she had direct experience of the effects of the blue gem that Karen used on her. She had seen how quickly her mind could be enslaved by it. Now she realized that she might have a way to resist his efforts. Alice was a strong-willed and intelligent girl, and the thought that her mind had been captured so easily by Karen made her feel vulnerable and exposed. She examined the little pebble, turning it over in her fingers. It was definitely pleasant to the touch, she thought, smooth and glossy and somehow comforting. And was that a hint of warmth she felt radiating from it, or was she just imagining it? She wasn't sure. She read through the last few lines of Malcolm's instructions, carefully transcribed by Will, onto the thin message sheet. Touch this stellarite pebble when Karen attempts to use the gemstone. Focus on a possible pleasant image. When he questions you, speak normally. Do not pretend to be in a daze, or he will know you are trying to trick him. There were a few final lines in code. She had decoded them to find they outlined a signaling schedule. Will wanted to avoid regular signaling, knowing that Karen would eventually become aware of it. The coloured lights in the trees would appear in irregular intervals, not at the same time and place each night, and sometimes there would be no message and the white light's movements would alter from the strict pattern needed for the code. Clever, Will, she said softly. She knew Karen was no fool. Will also told her that he would keep someone watching the tower each night in case she had anything urgent to communicate. She burnt the thin paper in the flame of the lamp. When it was reduced to ashes, she crumpled them to dust and scattered them on the window. She already knew what positive image she would use when Karen tried to mesmerize her. Her opportunity to test Malcolm's instructions came within the hour. She heard Karen's voice in the anteroom outside, and the startled clatter as the sentries came to attention. No fool indeed, she thought. She was willing to bet that he'd heard about the lights in the forest. Maybe he'd even watched them himself. Now he was here to make sure there was no significance to them. As the key turned in the lock, she slipped the pebble under the tight cuff of her left sleeve, where it was concealed yet accessible. Kieran nodded briskly at her as he entered the room. He jerked his head towards the table. "Sit down, Alice," he said. "I have a few questions for you." Today, she thought, he was all business. Obviously, he didn't have the time to waste, and there were to be none of the previous mock-friendly formalities. She was grateful for that. His good humour and self-satisfied air had begun to grate on her. They were enemies, after all, and she would prefer if he treated her accordingly, without the pretense at airs and graces and knightly charm. He reached into the leather wallet at his belt and produced the blue stone, letting it roll onto the table between his fingers. There was no need for preamble now. The stone had become the trigger for his post-hypnotic suggestions. All he had to do was order her to look at it, and within a few seconds she would be mesmerized again. "Look at the stone, Alice," he said softly. Her eyes fell to the beautiful orbs as he rolled it gently back and forth on the tabletop. As ever, she could feel it drawing her in, filling her consciousness. Beneath the table, she slid the forefinger of her right hand under the cuff of her left sleeve to touch the smoothness of the little pebble. Instantly, she saw a glossy black sheen overlay the blue depths of the gem, and her mind stepped back from the abyss of Karen's control. Think of a pleasant, positive image, Malcolm had instructed. She conjured up the most pleasing image she could imagine. Will's face, smiling, hair tousled, deep brown eyes alight with the joy of life. And her mind was free. "Keep looking at the blue," Karen said softly. "Are you ready to answer my questions?" She continued to stare at the gem, but now the depths had gone from it, and it was a dim background to her image of Will's face. She had always loved that cheeky grin of his, she realized. "Yes," she replied simply. She was glad that Malcolm had instructed her not to try to appear as if she was in a trance. She had no way of knowing how she had behaved on the previous occasions when Karen had controlled her mind, but she had assumed she must have been in some kind of trance-like state. Apparently not. Good. There were lights in the forest last night, he said. She had been right. He knew about them. There were, she repeated, neither questioning the fact nor confirming it. So far there had been no direct question, so there was no specific answer required. Did you see them? She asked. Suddenly she felt the urge to answer truthfully, to say, yes, I saw them. They were signals. She stroked the stalactite, felt the compulsion recede as her resolve strengthened. No, she said, and her heart leapt. She had broken his hold over her. She could tell him anything, answer anything, as long as she kept her wits about her. Inside she was exultant, but her diplomatic training helped her keep a totally neutral expression on her face. Kieran frowned. He was sure the lights had been some form of signal being sent to her, but he knew she couldn't lie to a direct question. He tried again. You sure? He said. There were red, blue, yellow, and white lights moving in the trees. Did you see them? Alice, on the point of saying it was late, I was asleep, stopped herself just in time. If she hadn't seen the light, she would have no way of knowing when they had appeared. She realized that her hold on control was a tenuous one. The effort of countering Karen's insistent assault on her mind was very distracting, and she must not let her guard slip. I didn't see them, she replied. Then she added in a conversational tone, I've seen them before. Her eyes on the gem she felt rather than saw Karen's hands snap up at that revelation. When? He asked her instantly. When did you see them? 10 days ago. Will and I went into the forest. There were lights. She knew he had a pretty good idea that she had been into Grimsdale Wood with Will. His men had shadowed her on that occasion. At the time, of course, she and Will had assumed it was Ormond having them followed, and while they hadn't actually seen her enter or leave the forest, Karen must suspect that was where they had gone. It would do no harm now to admit it. It might even distract him from the line of question he was following. He drummed his fingers of one hand on the table. As he became more distracted, Alice noticed that it became easier for her to control her words and her thoughts. He tried once more, but she could feel his conviction was waning. What do the lights mean? She shrugged. I think Malcolmans used them, she said. They frighten people away from the forest. The fingers drummed again as he said distractedly, Yes, they do that all right. My men won't go near the place. That was definitely worth knowing, she thought. Since Will had escaped into the forest with Ormond, she had thought that Karen might have seen through Malcolm's ploy and convinced his men to follow them in and hunt for them. Karen let go of the long, pent-up breath. He was on edge. She sensed he was expecting some event to take place. His next words confirmed her suspicion. Well, I can't waste any more time with this. General MacHaddish, okay, is due in the next day or two. He was speaking to himself, secure in the knowledge that his words wouldn't register with her in her mesmerized state. He rolled the blue stone back towards him and removed it from the table. All right, Alice, until next time. You can wake up now. She assumed that she should not make any pretense of coming out of a trance, but simply continue with normal conversation. But her mind was racing. MacHaddish was a Scotty name. There was a Scotty general due here in the next few days. Will would have to be told. So, she said evenly, what did you wish to talk about? Karen smiled at her. We've already talked, he said, but of course you don't remember it. That's all you know. That's all you know, Alice thought. That's all you know, Alice thought. Alrighty, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to read up to chapter 8. If you'd like to listen to me read chapter 9, then please stay posted and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye bye.